So, holy freaking cow, after a week of speculation online, it turns out that Nintendo really did have planned all along to have a Nintendo Direct this week, which is now tomorrow, March 27th, all about the Switch 1 only days before the April 2nd Direct for the Switch 2. This to me is completely crazy, but of course it's completely exciting because it's another Nintendo Direct, which is all that we ever want to see. And like I said, it's going to be focused on the Nintendo Switch 1, and people were talking about and predicting it these past couple of days, and I was certainly not really willing to believe it until I saw Nate the Hate send out a tweet that he had heard that, yes, there would be one this week, probably on Thursday, which, of course, is what turned out to be true. Let me just read the tweet. Not like it's a deep tweet, but this is the tweet that Nintendo sent out just this morning, giving me barely enough time to record this video before starting work. They say, tune in tomorrow, March 27th at 7 a.m. Pacific time for a live streamed Nintendo Direct, featuring around 30 minutes of upcoming games for the Nintendo Switch. There will be no updates about Nintendo Switch 2 during this presentation. So, yeah, it's the standard kind of tweet and verbiage that Nintendo makes for Nintendo Direct. I even talked about this in my last video, which is really funny, where I was discussing how long the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct in April might be. And I even brought up how many times when they tweet about a new Nintendo Direct, they will include the amount of time, the length of time of the Direct. And that's exactly what they did this time. They told us it's going to be 30 minutes. It's going to be focused on the Switch 1. And of course, very smartly, they go out of their way to say that there will not be any updates about Switch 2 games. Of course, it's notable to talk about the fact that we didn't get a Direct in February, which was the big thought process at the time. It was something I really didn't believe in. Of course, I was open to be surprised at any time and see that they were going to have a Direct in February. But at that time, I remembered thinking, I just don't see why they would do this. But to be fair, I didn't think they would hold any Direct, really, focused on the Switch 1 before the Switch 2 Direct in April. I thought that that was not maybe what their plan was going to be. I did think, and I did explain in a video why I thought it would make sense for them to do that, and it would have been a smart choice to do, but I didn't really believe that they were going to. I thought it was going to be an opportunity that they were going to let pass them by. But nope, it turns out the whole time, less than a week before the April Switch 2 Direct, they were planning on giving us this Direct. And so it wasn't about February. A lot of the people who said they heard something about February were clearly wrong. That was not Nintendo's plan. We now have one tomorrow, first thing in the morning. So the big question I think we all have is why? Why now for a Nintendo Direct, a Switch 1 Nintendo Direct? Why would you not have chosen, I'll say it this way. If Nintendo always had enough content or announcements or games to talk about to fill up a 30-minute Nintendo Direct, and a regular Nintendo Direct, by the way, it's a traditional Direct, it's not a mini, it's not a partner showcase or none of that other stuff, or an indie Direct. If they had enough content to fill up a 30-minute Direct this whole time, why wait until now? You know, what is it, 5 or 6 days, I think, if I could do the math correctly, before the Switch 2 Direct? I mean, like I said, less than a week. Why wouldn't they have done it in February? I mean, now with hindsight, I can look back at the first few months of the year and say January or February would have been the better time. What is the actual benefit? Other than, you know, I'm realizing this kind of in real time, and I actually did talk about this in a video a few weeks ago as well, actually, so it's kind of funny. But, you know, Nintendo sometimes does think about how the timing of their Directs relates to the releases of games, which sometimes makes a lot of sense, and in other times doesn't make sense. And this is one of the times where I don't think it makes sense. But look, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition just came out a week ago. So more than likely, they didn't want to release this Direct before Xenoblade Chronicles X, and so they wanted to wait to get that game out and then have a Switch 1 focused Direct. You know, and of course we know the Switch 2 trailer was released the same day Donkey Kong Country Returns HD was released, and a lot of us thought that maybe that was going to impact their choice. And I don't know if that impacted their choice, because they didn't reveal the Switch 2 before or after Donkey Kong. They did it the same day. Like, that's never happened, so that kind of changes precedence. But as far as this goes, today's announcement, I think, I can only guess that this has to do with the fact that a week ago, Xenoblade Chronicles X came out, and they just must not have wanted to reveal or have a Nintendo Direct between Donkey Kong and Xenoblade, which is weird because that's part of what I theorized weeks ago in February when I was talking about why they would or wouldn't have a Direct in February. It's like they either do want to have a Direct between these two games or they don't. And clearly they didn't, but what I didn't see was them squeezing in an 11th hour Direct after Xenoblade and before the Switch 2 event in April. Because why, if having this like 4 weeks ago, how would it have negatively impacted Xenoblade? I don't think it would have made any impact on Xenoblade to have a 30-minute Direct like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Like what? But either way, it doesn't even matter speculating at this point because here we are, it's going to happen. So they clearly have some games and some announcements and some things that they want to talk to us about in a regular, traditional Nintendo Direct, days before the Switch 2 Direct. So the big question we then have is what are those games going to be? And I'm just going to get this out of the way, you guys. Here's where my mind is. All I'm thinking about is Metroid Prime 4. It's Metroid, Metroid, Metroid. That is all I want. That is all I want to see. The fact that we are getting this Direct before the Switch 2 event only tells me that the big main focus will be Metroid Prime 4. And I am so excited. I am shaking in my freaking boots to see Metroid Prime 4 tomorrow in this Nintendo Direct because I know it is going to happen. As far as I'm concerned, until I see the Nintendo Direct tomorrow, for the next 24 hours, this is what I'm going to believe. That showing us more about Metroid Prime 4 might be the primary reason they're even having this Nintendo Direct. Maybe when I see it tomorrow, that's not the case, and it turns out they announced Mario Odyssey 2 for the regular Switch before the Switch 2 comes out. I mean, Nintendo can throw me a curveball at any moment, but again, for the next 24 hours until I see it, I'm putting all of my chips on Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. I think that is going to be one of the main reasons we learn that they have this Direct. So I'm expecting a full trailer. I'm talking 2 to 3 minute trailer with tons of gameplay, tons of insight into the story and the context of Silux and everything going on there. And yes, I'm expecting a release date. So here's the thing we have to talk about when it comes to this, you guys. If Metroid Prime 4 is present tomorrow, which like I 99.9% guarantee you guys that it will be there, if they give us a full trailer and a release date and all this stuff, it does very much change how Metroid Prime 4 might fit into the Nintendo Switch 2. And I will be totally transparent with you guys. I have been a staunch supporter of the idea for like 2 years. I mean, for a long time. A staunch supporter of the idea that Metroid Prime 4 would be related to the Switch 2 in some way. Like maybe it's a launch day game. Maybe there's going to be, a port, a Switch 1 and a Switch 2 version of the game. Maybe it releases soon after the Switch 2, but it's still part of the general marketing cycle of the Switch 2. I've absolutely been believing it's going to be in the April 2nd Nintendo Direct for all of these reasons. And I can only be honest with you guys. Now that we have this Direct tomorrow, and because I believe Metroid Prime 4 is going to be there, and honestly should be there, because we do know it is a confirmed Switch 1 game at the very least, it does make me wonder if maybe Metroid Prime 4 will not have a heavy marketing cycle on the Nintendo Switch 2, and there might not be plans for a definitive edition port or a patch. It will be very interesting to see after tomorrow's Direct, when I expect to have a new trailer for Metroid Prime 4, if they will then reference the game again on April 2nd, or if it is not going to be there, because maybe Nintendo is totally separating Prime 4 from the Switch 2. It makes me a little nervous for the Switch 2 show, and it makes me more than a little sad to think about this, but then my sadness goes away because at the end of the day, all I care about is the game, is Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, seeing more of the game, having more footage to like discuss and break down and make videos about. Oh my god. And also just to have the freaking release date, man. I need to know, as I said before, I need to know when to take a week off of work for Metroid Prime 4. I gotta get that time off in, man. I gotta let people know. And so I won't spend this whole video on Metroid Prime 4, even though it's the thing I'm obviously most passionate about here. But I just, to reiterate what I feel, Metroid Prime 4 is going to be there tomorrow, guys. So let's prepare for a new trailer. We're going to get a trailer. I think it's going to be the full trailer. I think we're going to get the release date. Maybe the release date is June, or maybe it's August, which was a theory that I had, a month or two ago. I think that tomorrow is the day. How this impacts Metroid's appearance at the April 2nd Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, I have no idea. But there's a chance that this is going to change everything. And while I'm sad for the Switch 2 opportunity, I'm just excited to see the game because it is all that I care about. Now, the other thing that could be at the Nintendo Direct tomorrow would be Metroid Primes 2 and 3. Are we finally going to see those definitive edition or remastered versions? You know, Metroid Primes 2 and 3 remastered, or are they just going to be HD remastered ports? Whatever they're going to be, I think that it's finally time to see that Metroid Primes 2 and 3 will be coming to the Nintendo Switch. So what are the 11th hour games coming to the Switch around the reveal of the Switch 2 with the Direct? I mean, that's what I think the focus of this show tomorrow is going to be. And so, yes, I think Prime 4 is going to be the big focus, but Primes 2 and 3, I think also have a great chance at showing up tomorrow. Of course, that means I have to talk about the two other hotly desired ports for Nintendo Switch, which of course is Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. I mean, gosh, we've been talking about these for years, man. And it's one of those things where, just like with Xenoblade Chronicles X, like for years, everyone said, this is money on the table, Nintendo. Like, just release ports of these games. You know, release a port of Xenoblade Chronicles X. People will buy it and play it. And it seemed like they were never going to, and then they just released it last week. For years, we've been saying the same thing about Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. Like, this is money on the table. You've ported these games once to HD already on the Wii U. I still own my copies of those two games, as well as my original copies. And so, why not bring them again over to the Nintendo Switch? You know you're going to sell a couple million copies each. Like, Primes 2 and 3 will do okay for themselves if they come to the Switch in an HD port. But Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, look, they will do a lot better. I think you're guaranteed 2 to 3 million copies each of those games, maybe even more, if you release those games here at the end of the Switch's life before the Switch 2. So, just like Primes 2 and 3 getting HD remasters, I think that Wind Waker and Twilight Princess might also finally show up. But what else would they show us? Weirdly, of those 5 games I just talked about, none of them are technically new. Now, Prime 4 is a new game that none of us have played, but when they show it tomorrow, it's not going to be a new game we haven't seen or didn't know existed. So there's that element. And then you've got the 2 Metroid games and the 2 Zelda games. Well, they're like decades old, and most of us have played all of those games, if not some of them. And so they're all very exciting. I mean, Metroid Prime 4 is most exciting, but even those 4 port games, yes, we would be excited to see those, but they're not new games. So what new games would they even talk about in a 30-minute Nintendo Direct? I mean, I don't know. Something else I mentioned when I discussed the February Nintendo Direct idea was like, they might be sitting on 1 or 2 sizable mid-tier releases for the Switch. I think they're holding on to at least one more big Switch game, you know, that isn't Metroid Prime 4. And, you know, I speculated that could be something like another Yoshi game or another Kirby game, or, I mean, I don't know if a Fire Emblem, it may be a Fire Emblem, but I could also see the next Fire Emblem being saved for, like, the Switch 2, which is where things get tricky when you think about what big game could they still release on the Switch 1 that wouldn't instead come to the Switch 2. And, like, Yoshi and Kirby, to me, I could see their next game being either, so I think there's a good chance they might be waiting for a surprise reveal of one of those games for the Switch. Like I said, Fire Emblem, I could see being one or the other. I also talked about a Donkey Kong game. I think the next Donkey Kong game they release should be a Switch 2 game, not a Switch 1 game. But I think that Nintendo might be planning the next Donkey Kong game to be a Switch 1 game. So maybe that's a big reveal for tomorrow's Nintendo Direct, you know? Maybe we get other ports of, like, Xbox 360 games announced. Nintendo loves to do those kinds of things. So we might get, like, a sizzle reel of stuff like that that's coming. I'm sure a couple of indie games are going to be talked about. I mean, hell, Silk Song. Maybe Silk Song shows up tomorrow. I don't know. I've given up on that game. I don't even care at this point. But it certainly might be one of the reasons Nintendo has a last-minute Nintendo Direct, right? We have to think about what forces them to do this. I mean, it's like the running theme of this video, and I don't know how to shake this idea of why Nintendo would do this. Weirdly, February would have made a lot more sense, as I said at the beginning of the video. So, yeah, Metroid's going to have a presence. We're going to see Prime 4. Maybe we get those Zelda games. and then maybe we get a Yoshi game or a Kirby game or a Donkey Kong game or a Fire Emblem game. I doubt they would do something as huge as like the return of Star Fox for tomorrow. I think the return of Star Fox will happen on the Switch too. I don't expect it to happen tomorrow. I'd love to see it tomorrow, but at the same time, I'm ready for all of the next entries in my favorite franchises to be on the Switch too. So I don't know. I probably don't have anything else to say. I've been rambling about this for whatever 15 or so minutes here. I mostly just wanted to talk about the insanity of this announcement, my excitement to see the show, and the fact that Metroid Prime 4 I know will be there. And how that is the most exciting thing in the world, but it also shakes up the possibility of how Metroid will play any factor in the Switch 2 Direct next week. So this is wild, man. Wild times we're living in. Nintendo knows how to keep us on our toes. Even though this was starting to get rumored the past couple of days, this is still a surprise. So as far as I'm concerned, they kept us on our toes by announcing this thing. So I'm excited. Just like you guys, I'll be up first thing in the morning tomorrow to watch this and to see Metroid Prime 4 and talk about it afterwards. Holy cow. I cannot wait. And so that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching, guys. And yeah, I'll see you next time.